Dear viewers, welcome once again to Ramadan around the world, and tonight we'll be heading actually west to the country of love. It is famous for the Eiffel Tower in Paris, the sweet-scented lavender fields in Provence, fashion, museums, art, the art galleries, the fine cuisines, and the beautiful landscape from the mountains in the Alps to the dazzling beaches of Marseille and Nice. So welcome to a special night from France, diving in together to some of the things that France is best known for, not only the fashion capital of the whole world, but also the home of the prestigious global ancient universities. Actually, when people think of France, automatically we think of the Sorbonne. And in that regard, tonight, Ramadan around the world celebrates France, the French culture, and celebrates also the French university in Egypt. I'm having all the honor and pleasure to host with us for the first time live on this special edition of Ramadan around the world, His Excellency Professor Denis Darpy, the president of the French University in Egypt. With the professor, we'll be knowing more about his stay in Egypt and knowing more also about the Ramadan vibes and whether he has ever experienced Ramadan with us in Egypt before. Also knowing more about Ramadan vibes in Paris and how Ramadan in Egypt is really different. As the song always says, Ramadan في مصر حاجة تانية. In Egypt, Ramadan is really different and is really unique. Well, it's a beautiful country that we are celebrating tonight with its vibes, with the festive lights, with the decorations and traditions. Allow me to welcome Professor Denis Darpy, the president of the French University in Egypt. And Professor, je vous souhaite un excellent Ramadan, and welcome to Nile TV International and this special edition of Ramadan around the world. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much. Ramadan Karim, مساء الخير.
مساء النور، مساء النور. سعداء بيك جدا. Thank you so much for coming tonight, Professor Darpy. Shortly we'll be flying from Egypt to the mother of the world, to France, the country of immense cultural legacy. Egypt, the mother of the world, and how the Egyptian culture is actually today being all over the world in depth. Professor Darpy was appointed the president of the president of Université Française d'Égypte, or the French University in Egypt, back in September 2020. And ever since his appointment, he has been working hard to maintain the perfect environment for the Franco-Egyptian scientific cooperation that has been present for over 100 years, gaining additional momentum and flourishing. So before delving into the topic, let's have a look on the biggest vote in Europe this year. Of course, the French presidential elections is making headlines. The eyes of the whole world are on France. Let's watch tonight. We'll be seizing this opportunity to know more also about the process itself of the ballot and of the elections from Professor Darpy. This report, and we'll be back.
French voters will be casting ballots in a presidential election whose outcome will have international implications. France is the 27-member bloc's second economy, with the only one with a UN Security Council veto. There were 12 candidates to pick from, but in the end, the French chose the same presidential finalists as in 2017. In the first round of voting on April 10th, Emmanuel Macron, the centrist president, came on top with almost 28%. Marine Le Pen, a populist nationalist, came second with 23%. The first round of France's 2022 presidential election was held on the 10th of April. A runoff will be held between the top two candidates on the 24th of April this year. The incumbent president, Emmanuel Macron, from La République En Marche, who won in 2017 and whose first term lasts until the 13th of May, announced on the 3rd of March that he was launching his re-election bid to a second 5-year term for which he is eligible under the Constitution of France. His opponent in the second round, is Marine Le Pen, leader of the National Rally, whom he defeated in 2017. France's presidential rivals gear up for final week's campaigning. The duel between Macron and Le Pen is a rerun of the 2017 election final, from which Macron emerged victorious with 66%. But this time, polls predict a closer contest. Much attention is already turning to the second round and the question of who will win the election.
Cher vieux Paris de mes amours, que c'est bon d'être de retour au printemps de ma vie. Bonjour Paris, tous mes chagrins, tous mes plaisirs, la symphonie des souvenirs surgissent de la nuit. La muette, ma chambrette, Saint-Lazare, ma guitare, la huchette, chansonnette, invalide, ventre vide. De tes vieux quartiers flottent des ombres bien-aimées du temps de mes folies. La Chapelle, oh Gisèle, la Villette, oh Claudette, la Bastille, douce Camille, République Dominique. Bonjour revivre mes amours et retrouver pour quelques jours des frissons sans prix. Merci, merci Paris. Bonjour Paris, cher vieux Paris de mes amours.
All eyes are on the French presidential election. The process of the election, Professor Darpy, in the first place, why 2 rounds of voting?
Actually, maybe it's very important, and thank you for the questions, because tonight is a very important night, actually.
Exactly.
The 2 running candidates are in debate at the moment, and it is every year, every 5 years, it is a very important debate. And it's a very important political moment in France. Presidents are elected by the population since 1962, since 1965 exactly, and every 5 or 7 years, 7 years before. It's a moment for French people to compare different programs and to select the person who's going to lead actually the activity and the political life of the next 5 years. So we have 2 runs. For example, the first run is having up to, we had 14 running candidates at the first run. People with established party, people with a different voice as well, and it's a possibility for everybody to express. And then the 2 first runners are being selected and can run for the second run.
Yeah.
So this is very important because then more than 50% will go on the one person.
Yeah, usually it is always making headlines, and the French presidential elections really matter to the whole world. The significance of the whole story as it is in the main headlines, the whole vibes of the story.
Maybe because there's a political traditions in France where people like to debate. So debating is always, and these debates goes over very important subjects, for the subject about Europe, subjects about rights of people, social rights, and so on. So clearly, very often, some debates goes in France can have an impact over Europe. So, and again, Europe, as well as Germany, as well as Italy, are big countries in Europe. So their change, their evolution in politics will have an impact over Europe.
Definitely it will. Well, without going into details of the programs of the candidates, however, it goes without saying that the president always have the youth and the future of education considered to be on top of the list. And in your capacity, Professor, as the president of the French University in Cairo since September 2020, there has been a vision for this prestigious university in Egypt and a strategy that reflects on the deep-rooted cooperation between Egypt and France.
Definitely, actually, the French University has been a project really from the beginning between France and Egypt. And in 2019, during the visit of President Macron and President Sisi signed a new agreement to help the university to go beyond, actually, to make a bridge in Egypt between Europe and Africa. So both for Egyptian people, for people from the area, and people from Africa. It's clearly a hub where French universities can deliver French diplomas for the whole regions, and working with academics from Egypt clearly to build a bridge between Europe, Egypt, and the rest of Africa and Middle East.
Yes.
So it's a very important cooperation.
It is, and it is supporting also the cultural bond between both countries, the intellectual and the educational bond as well. Professor Darpy had always stressed that the French University in Egypt is a research university of international level. So the university is not only an educational institution, but it is above all an institution for research. And an institution of research comes in the full sense of the word, if we are going to translate this into action accordingly to the vision of the university. Right, Professor?
That's right, actually. Research is at the core of what university, and you mentioned the Sorbonne, actually. The two oldest universities in the world are the Sorbonne and Al-Azhar universities.
Yes.
And these two universities were clearly, from the beginning, dedicated to knowledge, to research, and to transmission. So a university is both research and education through transmission of the latest results. And this research will help, as objective to help the society. So society, and today the challenges are multiculturalism, the challenges are sustainability, climate change, and really we just need to be oriented on these main topics.
Yes, very important topics, and what is quite interesting also is we have the youth today. Egypt is investing in the youth. President Elysee is investing in the youth of Egypt as the treasure of this country, and we always find the president, for instance, in the 6th Youth Forum that was held back in July 2018, the president stated that we want to build an Egyptian character that is fit for all the challenges. And that is very important, that all the universities in Egypt, working in Egypt, working hand in hand in order to build the human character. So building the human character definitely also is on top of the priorities of the French University.
Yes, building the character. Actually, our vision or our mission is to develop young leaders, future young leaders in Africa, so in an African way, understanding the challenge of Africa, but young leaders who are trilinguals, that means French, Arabic, and English. And when you master these 3 languages, you master 3 of the 5 most spoken languages in the world.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we want them to be sensible, creative, and sensitive. It's very important to be responsible, creative, and sensitive, because the 3 together clearly makes citizens who care about the world, care about the challenges.
Yes, caring about the challenges and also having a future vision for what is coming ahead. In the same regard, Egypt has taken it upon itself in order to meet the creative and the talented youth, to listen to them, to understand their ideas, to work more on reflecting on their aspirations on a solid ground, establishing a comprehensive development on all levels. This is Egypt's vision for the youth of the future. How are we building today leaders for the future at the French university? It's very important, and I very much like what you said, Prof, concerning the preparation not only for Africa at large. So a broader vision then.
It's clearly a broader vision, actually. Our approach is first through methodology. So we want people to be able to do critical thinking, to questions what we are bringing them. And this is why it's important to have, as professors, researchers who are also looking at the latest information into science. And from the science, then you can really to build new young people and to get them to the next step to develop their own thinking and problem solving.
Yes, definitely. We do have here more than one important slogan from the charming city of Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, when we talked about the World Youth Forum. Together, people from the different cultures all over the world came to Egypt expressing their views and presenting their ideas and sharing experiences as well. One of those experiences was about, of course, the holy month of Ramadan, along with Ramadan traditions and Ramadan vibes. And it is through those congregations that the youth know more about each other. They explore more about the different nations and their traditions and their cultures. Well, the coming report is highlighting Ramadan and how it is observed in France, because as you can see, the French vibes are in the air on this episode live. Let's watch this report and we'll be back.
Ramadan marks a special time of spiritual discipline and purification for millions practicing Muslims across the globe. In France, the holy festival of Ramadan is best experienced in the areas and locales concentrated with Muslim communities. The mosques in France hold the Taraweeh congregational prayers during the holy month. Sermons and recitations of the Holy Quran, as well as social activities, are arranged so that Muslims and people from other backgrounds can learn and interact more about Islam. People often visit the famous Grande Mosquée de Paris, the Strasbourg Mosque, Grande Mosquée de Lyon, or the Mosque of Omar ibn Khattab, to offer their prayers. The Great Mosque of Paris publishes its full schedule for Paris and the surrounding areas. The Great Mosque of Lyon gives information for Lyon and other areas around France, such as Marseille, Nice, and Lille. Throughout the month, Arab cultural centers in Paris have Ramadan programs and musical concerts. The Egyptian Cultural Center organizes musical concerts and conferences. Some Parisian supermarkets dedicate a section to Ramadan products such as Algerian soup and Moroccan harira, dates, nuts and dried fruit, sweets and pastries. But those seeking the essence of Ramadan have to go to the Arab immigrant district of Paris, that has the highest population density of the city, and its atmosphere is reminiscent of some Arab capitals. An open food market takes place there every Saturday and Wednesday. But it is not only the culinary drive that attracts people to this neighborhood, but also its Ramadan atmosphere. It is a colorful market. The palette of a vegetable stall ranges from pale yellow via green and orange to a deep red. The stand next to it is purely green with its heaps of aromatic herbs. Close by, an Egyptian stallholder is offering different brands of dates and calls all passers-by to come and buy dates. In general, Ramadan in France focuses on self-purification, the reinvigoration of familial and Muslim community bonds, and the activation of a sense of charity and concern for others.
Professor, talking about Ramadan vibes in France, and as we have seen in the report how it's portrayed, we've seen in different mosques also Taraweeh prayers. And we would love to know more from you about how is the holy month celebrated in Paris and in different parts of France.
Well, there's already a first difference between Egypt. During spring or summer, the daytime is longer. So that means Muslims, citizens in France, they have to, iftar is more around 9 o'clock in the evening. So fasting is longer.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's probably a quite big difficult for a lot of people. Yes, it's a time actually when people get to know each other. People are getting curious about the others. So it's very positive because clearly people are looking at others and understanding their own traditions,
yes,
their own rituals.
Yes, that's quite interesting. Talking about back home in Ramadan in Cairo, we were in France, back in Cairo, and whether you have spent more than one Ramadan with us here in Cairo, the vibes of Ramadan in Egypt.
So the first Ramadan was during COVID, so I didn't have all the vibes of Ramadan in Cairo. So this year, the first real Ramadan,
the first experience.
First real experience.
Yeah.
And of course, we organize some iftar at the universities. I've been invited to some iftar, so it's great to have this food, to understand the rituals of that. And actually, we tend to eat less during the day because actually it's very interesting. It's a different way to look to ourselves. But I must underline that really the experience, the most interesting experience was before Ramadan, when people are preparing the event. During Ramadan, we see people clearly going through the holy months, but before Ramadan, there is a frenetic preparation. Colors, lights in the streets, you are going to choose your lights and all the colors. It's like a bit Christmas in Europe. So it's very similar and very interesting. You see the importance and the importance of food as well.
Yes. We do have, of course, during Ramadan, very nice traditions. Also the dishes, special dishes also, and in celebration of the upcoming Eid, special pastries, what we call kahk. So those are special dishes here in Egypt. How about in France and in the different celebrations? What sort of cookies? What sort of dishes?
You mean for Christmas, for other time?
For Christmas and for festive occasions.
Festive occasions. I mean, for festive occasion at Christmas in France, there is what we call la bûche de Noël. It's chocolate timber. I mean, it's a very with butter and so on. It's a very specific gift, especially for Christmas. So that's the same. You have pastries here, you have oriental pastries, specific cakes for Ramadan. So this is very specific. Also, at the time, I mean, for example, for Easter, the lamb is very important. The gigot is very important. The lamb gigot is a very important thing during Easter in France. So again, you have some meat which is dedicated for some times, for some special occasions.
Yes. We do have plenty of beaches, for instance, concerning like tourism and tourist destinations. Marseille is considered to be very famous for the beautiful beaches. Is also known for the excellent Mediterranean food. The seafood is very famous there. This is where tourists can find actually the best delicious seafood dishes. If we talk about the beauty of Marseille while we are exploring France tonight on with those Ramadan vibes on Ramadan around the world, and other beautiful tourist destinations in France, what would you tell us, sir?
Marseille is a great place, that's right. Warm, people are warm, are welcoming and so on. The sea is everywhere, and it's one of the few cities where you have big cities and the sea. So it's very nice actually, a little bit like Alexandria. It's really a city on the sea. You have some other cities, Bordeaux. You have also Brittany, which is Western France, where connected to the sea, a bit harsher, but clearly it's worth to discover. So it's a bit colder, but it's worth to discover where the sea is rough, but beautiful landscapes.
Yeah.
Bordeaux is also a very civilized city next to the sea. So I would not recommend one place. I would recommend to pick one region and then come back the year after to discover another region.
Yeah.
Depending what you are looking for. You're looking for quietness, you're looking for sun, you are looking for the sea, you are looking for good food. Really depending where you want to go.
Yes, that's beautiful. From France back home and the vision of the French University in Egypt, and it is actually building this sense of bond cultural-wise. And I'm sure that there are also exchange visits for the students to visit like top-notch museums like the Louvre, for instance, back in France. How about that, the cultural exchange programs and the youth?
Definitely. Actually, for the last 2 years, exchange and student mobility was a bit difficult.
Yes, because
now
of the COVID.
it's back on track, so that means our students in management, they can go for one semester to Nantes, which is Western France, and of course, if they go to Nantes, it's easy for them to go to Paris, to have different people who are studying applied languages. We are in partnership with Sorbonne Nouvelle, so they stay in Paris for one semester, so they can really discover, enjoy the city of Paris. People who go to, we have people in architecture, they go one semester to Strasbourg. It's another way to discover east of France, next to Germany. It's also very good food there. So we give the opportunity to our students to spend one semester in one of the cities of our university partners to discover what's France on the longer term. And of course, we are organizing also cultural trips over summer for some of our students who want to discover maybe only Paris and, for example, Avignon, to go to Avignon to discover the theater festival and so on, some other very exciting cultural event.
Yes, that's very interesting, the cultural bond between both countries. And here in Egypt, the mother of the world, we are actually expecting the inauguration of the project of the century, namely the Grand Egyptian Museum, GEM, that is considered to be Egypt's gift actually to the whole world. And from the Louvre Museum in France to the GEM in Egypt, the Louvre also is a great experience. Let's go to the Louvre, exploring it. We'll be back. Professor, as we've seen the tour to the Louvre Museum, what a beautiful museum. We've seen a section throughout our tour at the Egyptian Antiquities section. What more? I mean, it's huge and beautiful. What's your advice while visiting the Louvre?
The Louvre is a fascinating museum. You're right, and it's one of the few fascinating museums in the world. And it's not only a museum, it's a palace as well. It has started to be built in the 12th century. Actually, we've seen some of the oldest part of the museum. It was a palace for the King of France. And then it has been built with more and more additions. And actually, when you look at this palace, it's like a book of art of history of art, with changes in architecture over time, up to the 20th century with the new pyramid, this glass pyramid, which has been built in the middle of the museum. And it is very interesting clin d'œil. It's a very interesting hint to the Egyptian civilization, Dumia, actually, and clearly the Egyptian Bar Department is a very interesting department, and this is where actually a lot of small Parisians, they are discovering Egypt. Actually, maybe it was some very interesting tie between France and Egypt. All French people, when they are 10 years old, when they're first year of college, actually they have at least 2 or 3 weeks in history course about Egypt. And most of the teachers, they are taking them to the Louvre in this department, just to discover the Egyptian art. So that's clearly another link between France and Egypt. And fascinating country. And best thing is to go, if you have time, go for 2 hours, look at one department, and then go somewhere else, and then come back 3 days later, discovers this museum in small pieces. This is the best way to discover it.
It is beautiful, and it has made a great bond also through the Egyptian section of antiquities that we were talking about. Professor Darpy, if we talk about the people-to-people relations, and Egypt and France enjoy strong relations in the field of culture, in the field of soft power, and definitely the French University in Egypt is contributing to this sense of bond and this sense of cultural enlightenment. The invitation of think tanks and famous artists to perform, the French superstars coming to Egypt and Egyptian stars performing in France. How about the university and the cultural and soft power program that is considered to be a great activity as well to further foster this sense of bond between people to people?
There are many things. First of all, I mean, clearly through theater, we have a theater play, so clearly we want people to develop their way to express themselves. So that's the first way. Second, we are starting to have some exhibitions within the university, so we want our students to be addressed and to be exposed to arts. So that's the second thing. And by 2023, yes, we will open also a decorative arts faculty, so opening new sections for people who want to become designers or stylists or fashion people. Mm-hmm. So clearly, cultural ties and developing the relationship between Egypt and France will continue and will be actually developed with Université Française. So that's very, very important. You mentioned soft power. I would say it's clearly a common understanding of values. It's more friendship than soft power. So people are into friendships. And when I look at my colleagues, Egyptian professors, they are really fan of France, and I like them very much because clearly it's very interesting. I like Egypt, and they make me discovering Egypt as well. So this is a mutual discovering.
Yeah, that's great that you mentioned, Professor, discovering Egypt, because this could be a beautiful program also on the university list for the sense of exchange, so that the French youth would know more about Egypt. We do have here, for instance, on Nile TV International, a series of promos entitled Explore Egypt, where we market Egypt to the whole world. So how about marketing Egypt in France through this sense?
I think Egypt is very well known in France because of history, of antiquities. But Egypt is not that much known. People don't know the strengths of that country, the size of the country, the diversity of the country. I mean, when I discover Egypt, yes, there is antiquities, but there's a desert, there's a delta, there are palm trees everywhere. There is a very strong development with New Cairo, the new capital, Galala city. I mean, all these areas are very new, and it's very important that French people and young French people discover Egypt as a different way. So as when we send our students from Université Française in our partner university in exchange, we also welcome French students to come to Egypt. So this is clearly on the basis of exchange for young people to know to each other, and then they develop relationships. So that's part of our mission. Yes,
yes, it is. Talking about the future of cooperation with Egypt, and the French University in Egypt is working within this framework. So talking about priorities for the future, what would you say, Professor?
Priorities, I mean, this is what we actually put in place for the last 2 years. Is when people come to the French university, they get a French national diploma, which is accredited in Egypt, which allows them to work in Egypt, in Middle East, or everywhere in the world. Then also they want to master, I mean, they can speak English and they come and we welcome them, but we will ask them to learn French. If they learn French, we want them to speak English. Clearly, we want them with 3 languages. And every time they have a partner, so we are going to develop, we have a French partner among the 500 best universities in the world according to the Shanghai ranking or THE or QS ranking. So getting quality education, excellent educations in different fields, from applied languages, management, computer science, engineering, intelligence, artificial, as well as mechanical or architecture, and soon some other disciplines such as decorative arts, and more to come. But always it's developing our students to understand a new world, to face the challenges of climate change, sustainability. So that's clearly at the core of the project. And it's clearly a project for 2030. It's clearly making them in power of their own future.
Yes, definitely we're working all according to Egypt's Vision 2030. And the different universities in Egypt are working also accordingly, according to this important vision, a vision for the future, and a vision that is investing in the youth of Egypt and the youth of Africa. I thank you so much, very much, Professor Dr. Denis Darpy, the president of the French University in Egypt. It has been a pleasure having you. And it has been also great to read with you the main story, hitting headlines, the French presidential elections. We wish France all prosperity. And we wish you, Your Excellency, all success on your mission here in Egypt. And we wish the French University all the best. And again, je vous souhaite un excellent Ramadan.
Thank you very much, and thank you. And it was a pleasure for me to be with you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you,
Ramadan
sir.
Karim.
Allahu Akram. Thank you so much, dear viewers. That was Ramadan Around the World, and we brought you Ramadan vibes from Paris, from the capital of love and fashion and museums and culture and history. Many thanks for watching. I'm Taghreed Hussein. We'll meet again next week.